eventually decides to go through to him at the byline, just dinks it up far post. Sane arriving late, too late, it would seem, for the ball. Can sweep it up, and backs to the wall stuff, but there's a good feeling about the way this game could shape up. Bournemouth have looked bright on the counter. City, very much as you would expect, controlling the ball and looking to try and work out the formula to break down the opposition. I suppose it's just a game of patience when the goal doesn't come inside the opening 10 minutes.
Yeah, patience. I thought that was a little bit too easy there from a Man City viewpoint or a Bournemouth defensive viewpoint. I mean, Sterling didn't really drop a shoulder. He controlled the ball and then just went round. Daniels, like he wasn't there, but I mean, he's crossing against four centre-backs. Not easy to pick out a target. Over his cross chances gone, but certainly City dominating possession.
Just over 10 minutes gone, still goalless between Manchester City and Bournemouth. A bright start to the match though. City actually troubled Begovic inside the opening couple of minutes when Sane broke down the left-hand side, a low-driven cross but parried away by Begovic and fell to claim it at the second time of asking. Then a chance at the other end for Bournemouth. They've actually looked quite good on the counter of the Cherries. And they won a corner kick, a really well-worked set piece, one off the training ground. Was taken short, little back heel to the byline. Fraser drilled it in low, and Wilson had looped around to the near post, but he could only flick wide of the target. And Sane, again, just moments after that, with another crossing that Begovic spilled. The keeper hasn't been convincing yet, but nothing meaningful to deal with.
City are on the attack down the left-hand side with Zinchenko, who fires it across, and sliding in was Jesus. He might have just got a toe on it, not enough of a contact to get it towards goal, but a little bit like Sane moments before. He's just drilled it across. It was pretty menacing, and I think Bournemouth were, I wouldn't say petrified, but they backed off, hoping that it was going wide of the target. Begovic, of course, he was in no man's land either. And it's a matter of inches away from the boot of Jesus. Bernardo Silva not quite as up in support, a little bit further off it, but that was a real chance, opportunity anyway, for City. That's a really good ball put in by Zinchenko, who's kind of a utility player for the champions. Obviously, as an attacking player, you struggle to get into the City side, but left back appears to be an avenue for his inclusion, particularly with Mendy seemingly struggling with injury again. Ball over the top. Wilson's given offside. Now a still that we got, independent opportunity studio commentary, of course. He was just on. He's down the right channel. He's hardly going through on goal, but it was certainly a chance for Bournemouth to attack.
Goals elsewhere as well in the Premier League. Leicester have taken the lead against Watford. It's Newcastle 0, West Ham 1 as well. Leicester have scored from the penalty spot. I imagine that's Jamie Vardy likely who's got the goal for them. We'll provide that update when it does come through though, as Sterling can't find a way to box. Yes, it is Jamie Vardy who scored from the penalty spot as for the Hammers. It's Chicharito, Javier Hernandez who's broken the deadlock to give them the lead at St James's Park. So goals starting to trickle through now in the top flight. Not yet at the Etihad Stadium, although the game has got the promise of it. Bernardo Silva again has seen a lot of the ball on the right. This time massively overcooks his pass over the top. Trying to be a little bit too intricate, sending Sterling into the penalty area. See Sergio Aguero watching the game from up in the stands. Rest for him this afternoon, hoping that his teammates can get the job done without him. He's again been heavily involved in their exploits this season, domestically and on the European stage. Depth of the City squad, that even without him today, you look at the front line and feel that they've got more than enough to deal with Bournemouth. Begovic with a long clearance downfield. Flicks on, might come for King. He's hoping to leave this one to go. Zinchenko wasn't having that one easily and took a bit of a shoulder charge, then tried to keep it in play. It is just going to be a throw Bournemouth's way. Midway through the City half on the right-hand side, and it'll be Cook to take it. Flicked on by a Bournemouth head straight into the hands of Ederson, and very comfortable Francis unable to find a teammate. City will look to... That's got help from Fraser. Now Daniels, and they go back towards their own goal, and Mings took a bit of a gamble there. His pass out came off the boot of Gabriel Jesus. It does find a teammate. Bournemouth looking to play a bit of possession game themselves right now, Rob.
Yeah, I think they had a bit of an attack, and I think that's arguably one of City's biggest threats as a ball over the top. Just a little bit too much on it for Josh King, because the break from City, certainly with Sane, Sterling, Jesus, etc., it can leave them a little bit exposed. I thought Tyrone Mings did very well initially there, but obviously they got all possession by Sterling. Although I think the danger is coming from City's left. They're certainly putting better balls into the box. I don't think Silva started particularly well. Sane tries to get through. He's got it behind. Out comes Begovic, smothers it his feet. Bernardo Silva rifles it home. The loose ball from around about the penalty spot. Just saying, he hasn't had the best start, certainly with his balls into the box. But again, it's down the left. The breaking run of Sane. I suppose Begovic has done just about enough. But Bernardo Silva first to react.
Just over 15 minutes gone. Manchester City lead Bournemouth by a goal to nil. Not too much of a surprise. They've had 70% possession. They have been pressing on, but it's a wonderful ball over the top that starts the move off, that sends Sane in behind, bouncing behind the defence. Begovic came out and, to his credit, managed to stop Sane getting a shot away, but he could only parry into the path of Bernardo Silva, who then just simply has to smash home into pretty much an open net. Ake had tried to get back on the line, but the ball was beyond him. But the credit must go to Zinchenko. It was his ball over the top that initially was sent towards Sane. That sparked the move off. City 1, Bournemouth 0.
Yeah, it's a great ball from Zinchenko, but looking at a replay, actually, I think Sane's done brilliantly himself, because he's aware that he's going offside, so he's just arced his run to absolute perfection. I think Ake is maybe a yard or two behind his fellow defenders. He's definitely onside, and he got there first. Begovic, it just wouldn't come down for Sane. It's a bouncing ball that's probably above waist height, and Begovic is able to smother. But Bernardo Silva.
Before the goal had been scored. That's proven to be the case even in the aftermath of the goal as well. Great avenue for City to continue exploring this afternoon. Always going to be a mismatch between Sane and Francis, or Cook if he pulls out wide. German's pace far too great for either of them. Danilo sweeping things up at the back now. Crystal Palace have gone 1-0 up at home to Bournemouth as well. James MacArthur with a breakthrough goal at Selhurst Park. So every match has currently got a goal, and the majority of home sides winning. Just West Ham, the only away side currently to have got on the score sheet and be in the lead. City coming forwards once again down the left. Zinchenko's pass to Sane this time is not good enough, and Bournemouth are able to get a body in the way. Put it out, at least for a moment, for a throw-in to halt this Manchester City steam train. Foul throw there from Zinchenko.
Yeah, he looked a little bit ordinary, that throw-in, didn't it? But he's just about got away with it. I suppose it was going backwards. It looks a dodgy one. Mings is facing up to Sterling, does well again. I mean, I think Sterling has started quite brightly in terms of getting in space, getting on the ball, running at defenders. Just so far, his final ball hasn't been fantastic. He's overcut crosses. I mean, it's not easy. You're aiming for Jesus against 3 defenders. You're not always going to pick out your teammate. It just looks better down the left so far for Man City. On this occasion, there's a ball over the top, which Sterling was worried about being offside, so he doesn't bother chasing it. Obviously, they have changed formation at the back, haven't they, Bournemouth? And I would suggest it hasn't worked. Yes, there's kind of a positivity going forward, but I mean, already 19, 20 minutes gone. You know, Sane has been in down the left channel 3 or 4 times. Sterling's shown up a couple of times down the right. Getting in behind the wing backs. I don't think it's quite worked. Although Mings has actually, I think, done all right so far. He has come into the side.
Yeah, I think most people probably felt he could be the weak point in that back line today for Bournemouth, but as you say, he's maybe proved troublesome for Sterling to try and get past comfortably. Anyway, it's been a good battle between the two. Sterling probably quicker, but Mings' height has meant that he's been able to just brush Sterling off the ball and use that physicality. A switch in play now from Bournemouth to the left with Daniels just on the edge of the box. He's headed down, was intended for a teammate, although it didn't find one, and Mings will then pick it up back on the halfway line. He's going to charge on forward here. In fact, he won't, because Daniels is going to send it on towards Fraser instead. His cross is headed up at the near post, flicked out then by Fernandinho and towards the halfway line, where Bournemouth will start once more. Just over 20 minutes gone now. Bournemouth back in with Nathan Ake. And they work it out towards the right-hand side. Flick down the line. Well, Laporte will just look to wash this one away. A little nudge in his back. But he's comfortable enough to see it into touch. And Pep Guardiola's got 1 or 2 issues that he's raising with his players out on the field at the moment. Vocal as ever, the Spaniard on the touchline. And he's never the type of manager to keep his mouth shut and just be happy with his side controlling the game and possession and leading. Of course, he'll feel that they shouldn't really be allowing Bournemouth further forward. Just looking back to when Bournemouth made the trip to Manchester City last season, and they played similar formation, 3 at the back again, and they lost 4-0 that time. So Eddie Howe, you would have thought, had learned his lesson, but maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he feels it's the best way to combat City's strengths, which are going forward. If they get enough ball, obviously they're going to cause a threat, particularly from set pieces, particularly with the team that they've picked. But it's getting that ball, and maybe Pep Guardiola's just been thinking City have just been a bit lax in possession, because really they've only had a couple of efforts at goal. Yes, some good-looking crosses have been put in, but you don't really expect City to score from crosses, do you? And they're just perhaps not creating as much as they could do. And I think it just came when Fraser attacked down the left-hand side. Danilo was just exposed down the left, and Otamendi took forever to get it across. I mean, you can always improve, I guess, on any kind of performance. But City are on the attack again. Gundogan just out-muscled the edge of the box, although Jesus has won it back.
Yeah, with Danilo to the right-hand side, and now the goal scorer Bernardo Silva has had more of an influence on the City starting 11 this season. The former Monaco man, Danilo is going to strike from range here. It's deflected away. Does have the legs to go for a corner, but Bernardo Silva decides to cross it instead. His cross with the outside of the boot is cleared away by Ake and into touch for a throw-in. So we are midway through this first half then, with Manchester City in control of this game. You feel they've got plenty more goals in them. Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 0. We'll just let this attack conclude, and I'll hand over to Rob as Sterling is into the box, gets the shot away, it's deflected. In fact, it was Jesus rather who had the final shot. Sterling will go and collect the loose ball out on the right-hand side, and he's faced up by a defender, this time Daniel. Sterling is persistent, though, in twisting and turning. Comes back to Bernardo Silva and Otamendi. The cross comes in. It's cleared away by Bournemouth, so I'll leave it to Rob to take us to half-time.
Yeah, City win it back on the halfway line. Callum Wilson giving game chase, but outnumbered, support slow in arriving. Easy for the men in blue to just recycle it to a man in space. Happens to be Laporte down the left. He's playing outside of Zinchenko at the moment. But they've swapped back, and Otamendi crosses the halfway line. Can't tell you, Leicester have got a second at home to Watford. First side, of course, to grab 2 today. 4 of the 5 home sides leading. As mentioned, West Ham just the solitary away victor as things stand. Of course, 1-0, anything's possible, but City boss in possession. It's getting more in their favour as this game wears on. It might lead to more chances as Fernandinho looks for a cross towards the left-hand side. It's pulled back by Jesus, left-footed, but he's probably on target. I don't think that was the intention. In fact, the flag's gone up, so it wouldn't have counted. Begovic was able to stick out a boot at his near post and put it behind for, well, he would have assumed a goal kick, corner kick rather, but offside correctly given. I haven't really seen much of Jesus yet.
No, I'm still wondering if he's maybe just feeling a bit of a knock after he put that ball across there, and he had a bit of a grimace on his face once more, so wondering if he's maybe thinking, well, this is my chance today, I've got the start, I need to make the most of it, and despite maybe picking up a bit of an issue, he just wants to try and get on with it. Interesting to see how long he continues for, if that is the case, but just doesn't hold his line as well as someone like Sane does. I suppose Sane, a more natural wide player, and he's used to making those arced bending runs. Jesus playing through the middle will be used to seeing the players in front of him. Yeah, we see Jesus again now, he's clutching the back of his head. I don't know if that's something that's come in the last few seconds, having gone up for a header, but looks as though he's been in the walls today.
James Maddison with the second goal for Leicester. Incidentally, Sane has it for City on the left-hand side. Cook comes back to at least stand him up. It's with Zinchenko. Now Gundogan across to Danilo, fairly central, 35 yards out. Feeding out to the right touchline, and Sterling to Silva, going away from goal. Mings and Daniels doubling up on the England man. But City won't mind recycling the ball. They're leading, of course, dominating possession. It was 70% at one point. As Bernardo Silva just let the ball run under his foot. Daniels has taken it from him and now charges forward into enemy territory. Fraser on the left flank wants it on his right foot. Not really having a go at Danilo or indeed Fernandinho. Tried to work the 1-2, but the return pass from Sermon didn't quite have the elevation, and it's headed away into touch for a Bournemouth throw. 20 yards from goal, left-hand side, with almost 27 minutes completed at the Etihad. City still leading by that solitary goal. And really, Begovic hasn't had too much to worry about so far, as it's back on the halfway line with the Cherries. And a big diagonal from Cook towards Charlie Daniels. It is over the head of Danilo, and Daniels will keep it alive. Now Fraser, level with the edge of the 18-yard box, but then passes back centrally to Cook, 30 yards out. Clip ball towards the right, headed in by Francis, and Otamendi gets there ahead of Laporte. They put it behind for a corner, actually, but the flag's gone up. Francis has gone a fraction too early, and that will in fact be an offside decision. And again, it's a tight one, probably wrong.
We're just around about half an hour into this clash now. Manchester City still leading by a goal to nil. I wouldn't say they're in complete control. They've had a lot of possession and they look good when they've got the ball, as they always do, but almost posing as a slight threat on the counter-attack a few times when they've been able to get the ball. They've moved it quickly into the final third and tried to get runners in behind. A couple of times they've actually even tried to hold on to possession for a passage of play in and around the halfway line, then looking for the switch field ball, getting the wing backs forward and getting the knockdowns in the box. To City's credit, they have dealt with those situations pretty well. Ederson hasn't really had to make a save.
City dominating possession on the halfway line. I'm not sure if he gave you the Palace score, actually. James McArthur has put Palace 1-0 up at home to Burnley, as Bernardo Silva, 25 yards out, faked the shot, then tried to thread it through for Jesus, blocked by the legs of Francis, then Cook. Still with City possession, though. Gundogan just on the left edge of the box, working a couple of 1-2s with Silva, back to Zinchenko. Now Laporte, who let it run for Otamendi. Danilo inside the Bournemouth half. Was being closed down. He's played it all the way back to Ederson, who hasn't had an awful lot to do in the game thus far, and would welcome a pass back to him just to be involved. Zinchenko now has it on the halfway line with Fernandinho cross to Danilo, who does tuck in, leaving Sterling as the wide man. Fades the England man, but quickly dispossessed by Daniels. Bournemouth have it back. maybe Bournemouth have settled into this contest. City getting so far, but not quite creating the chances as yet. But it's another chance to come forward. Gundogan just clipped from behind by Josh King. That'll be a free kick outside the centre circle for Man City. Possession stats maintained like this, you would think City are going to create chances.
Yeah, I think the longer it goes on, the more difficult it becomes for Bournemouth to deal with City. It's consistent, isn't it? Relentless pressure that the citizens put on them. As the game goes on, the legs become tired and minds become tired as well, and the mistakes quickly follow. And I think City often wear teams down. Once they've got that first goal, that's the key indicator that the game is likely to go in their direction. It's on days when they're really struggling to find that breakthrough in the first half that you feel maybe there's a case that the opposition could hold on for a draw or maybe even nick a win themselves.
Here come Bournemouth down their right-hand side. King worked a 1-2 with Francis. Return pass is slightly miscontrolled, but he still works it back out to Francis, who tried to just tease it down the channel for Fraser. Fraser's probably concerned about going offside, and the pass is over here. Trickles behind for a goal kick to Man City. It's still actually 70-30 possession percentages in Man City's favour. I thought it might have grown, but I suppose in the last 10 minutes Bournemouth have seen a bit of the ball. 5 attempts to 1, of course 1 on target. Bournemouth's attempt, I suppose, was that short corner.
Yeah,
wasn't much of an attempt. Obviously, the pass a little bit behind Wilson. If they do get more set pieces, they've got to be a threat. It's whether they can keep City out the other end. They've done a pretty good job of it, given those possession stats. Keep them down to 5 attempts, and they haven't all been good chances at all. City possession just on the halfway line, trying to just pull Bournemouth around, create the space. Silva tried a trick or two, showed too much, dispossessed by King, now appearing on the Bournemouth left, shrugs off Silva. Guardiola was appealing for something. Oh, then it's an awful pass for King under no pressure. He's hit it 5 yards straight to Fernandinho. And 1 or 2 Bournemouth players are out of position as Silva goes down the line for Jesus, who has kept it in. To Ake's benefit, and Bournemouth pick it up. Guardiola's still on the touchline, remonstrating, presumably with his players, because it's just not quite clicking.
No, it's not coming off as well as it could do for Manchester City. I suppose one thing to take into account is they're not at full strength today, are they? No De Bruyne still in this side, Aguero's missing. Mahrez, maybe you would say, who's had a pretty good start to life at City, has been key for them this season as well. So they've switched things up slightly today, and with that, players maybe aren't quite settling in as well as Guardiola would like them to. I think Jesus, for one, is a player that maybe hasn't really had enough of an impact on this game. I'd even suggest maybe Sterling too. He's seen quite a bit of the ball, but I don't think he's really done much with it in terms of end product. Sane and Silva, the two really that have stood out.
Huddersfield might be leading at home to Brighton, but they have been reduced to 10 men. So work for the Terriers to do to pick up yet another 3 points. I suppose apart from the top 3, Spurs, Liverpool and Man City. Huddersfield are the form side in the Premier League at the moment, as Sane has it, left-hand side, but plays it all the way back to the halfway line to Laporte. Silva at work, walking pace to back to the halfway line on Otamendi. Danilo out to Sterling. Now back to Danilo. Laporte sort of retreating towards his own box, and eventually he's played there by Fernandinho. And Ederson, more work to do. Finds a pass to Gundogan though. Returned by the midfielder back to him. And eventually, I suppose, Bournemouth tire from chasing. Defenders in possession, retreat back to the halfway line. But they've kind of got the goal and walking pace now.
Yeah, they feel comfortable, don't they? And that's dangerous, really. Could potentially become complacent, and that allows Bournemouth in. As I say that, he's then really cheaply given away by Danilo, and here come Bournemouth.
It's Fraser playing out towards Josh King, but he's underhit the pass. Danilo stepped in, brings it away. He's probably fouled by King, but the referee plays the advantage because Bernardo Silva comes forward for the citizens. Goes across the pitch to Gundogan though. And the pace again has slowed down. Zinchenko comes forward. Jesus with a touch, lays it back to Gundogan. Now Jesus 25 yards out. Fernandinho offers his support. Again, not at helter-skelter pace. Sterling might change that as he takes on Daniels yet again. Gets to the byline, digs out a cross. It's over there to Jesus. Nobody else is really arriving. Francis wasn't sure what was at his back, so Chesson hooks over his head into touch, throwing to Man City, not far from the corner flag. But Sane just a little bit slow to react there. Wasn't a bad ball in from Sterling?
Yeah, it was better, wasn't it? Having said that he'd not provided any end product, that was the first time I think he's got to the byline and actually managed to put something in. But as we said before, I don't think aerial balls into the box are really going to be an avenue, a fruitful avenue for Manchester City to explore today. They haven't got height in the attack. Sane and Jesus are the likely runners in there. You maybe get one of the midfielders too, but you match them up man for man with the Bournemouth players, and each of them are going to be smaller. So I think it's got to be kept down on the deck.
Steve Mounier, the man sent off for Huddersfield, by the way, as City, with 10 minutes to go to the break, dominating possession again. Jesus, the offload was too far behind Sane, and it looked like Silva might have just caught Fraser there, who beat into the ball. Free kick given to Bournemouth, 5 or 10 yards outside their own box. But still in this game, very much so, the Cherries. Quite as many chances created as I expected. We've talked about the scores that City have racked up. I mean, they might still get 4 or 5 goals, which has been the case in recent games against Bournemouth at the Etihad. Raheem Sterling's had a good little run against the Cherries as well. 7 goals, 2 assists in 5 games. Probably not always playing out on the right, which he is today. Daniels has got his hands full. But he looked more of a threat in maybe the first quarter of the game than he has approaching half-time, Sterling. There's a bit of head tennis, eventually falls for Cook, who roused the challenge of Gundogan, but can't get it down the line for Fraser. City have it back, 1 or 2 Bournemouth players down the pitch. Sterling collects just outside the centre circle. Bournemouth half, it's a good ball to Leroy Sane, just on the edge of the box. Onto his right foot, goes for goal. Can't keep it down. Not that far over the bar, certainly seen worse, but again off target.
Yeah, weaker side, isn't it, for Sane? Obviously trying to catch the defenders a little bit by surprise. Wouldn't be too predictable if he always goes out onto his stronger left, so looks to do something off the cuff there. Good pass from Sterling as well, spotting his teammate in space wide. Maybe were other options on for Sane, but I think potentially that's a bit of frustration as well from City. The fact they have had so much of the ball, they haven't really tested Begovic that much. You're starting to see players now from distance having a go, a pop shot, when City would often look to continue trying to break the opposition down.
Yeah, less than 8 minutes to go to the break. Probably won't get much added time unless something happens. We've had the goal and, of course, celebrations, but not much else. As in terms of time lost to injury or stoppages, as Begovic clears left-footed with Jesus closing him down. Header won by Otamendi powerfully, but Jesus is offside, and Sterling wasn't expecting it. It's going to bounce through to Begovic once again. Just waits for Bournemouth to clear their lines. Arrows it out towards Francis, who does flick on, as does Fraser, but Laporte got there ahead of Wilson and slides it into touch. Throw in to Bournemouth, halfway inside the City half, taken by Francis to Cook. Back to that was Lewis Cook. Back to the halfway line before it's clipped forward out towards the left-hand side, but Daniels plays it safe, going to Sermon, back into their own half, and Arcane being forced away back towards their own goal, fired out towards Daniels, who does well to at least get a foot on the ball, and slightly misjudged half interception from Otamendi. Josh King brings it forward for the Cherries. Arrows it towards the far post, that is not that far beyond Wilson. It's parried away by Edison, following up as Francis couldn't quite steer it back to a free teammate in the box, and gratefully stabbed clear by Zinchenko.
Yeah, it's a really good ball, isn't it? It's one of those that you dream of playing as a wide man. Put it into the box, over the defender's head, and it's on target. You know that your striker's coming in, and if he doesn't get there, then the keeper has only got a split second to react. It bounces awkwardly in front of Edison, and he has to parry it away. Then In the end, Bournemouth from the throw here, flick on at the near post, and City deal with that second ball. But a few moments of nervousness for Manchester City just on the stroke of half-time.
Yeah, it's a bit of pressure being applied by the Cherries. Still only 1-0 down. And if they can get some kind of equaliser and keep it tight, City will have a game on their hands. I mentioned Bournemouth should be full of confidence. That's largely after the start to their season, and of course they do lie in 8th place in the table, but they have lost their last 3. Certainly not an easy run of fixtures. Losing home games to Manchester United and Arsenal, and the away game was at Newcastle. All 3 2-1 scorelines, which of course is still on in this one.
We're not too far away from half-time now, and Bournemouth putting up a real fight in this game. City have looked a little bit frustrated. They've had all of the ball, but they haven't tested Begovic. It's not quite come off for them in the final third. Of course, that could all change in a split second, or maybe even when we get into the second half. But Bournemouth have arguably just had their best chance of the game. It was Josh King. It pulled out to the left-hand side. He put a really teasing cross into the box. It was over the head of Otamendi. Wilson was arriving in behind. He stretched but just couldn't quite get to the ball. But it was going on target, and as it bounced up off the turf, Ederson had a split second to react. He parried away. It was an awkward one, but City survived. Still 1-0.
Leroy Sané just offside. His runs in down the left-hand side, which were prominent in the early stages, not quite as effective so far. Going too early on this occasion, and offside given. It's a marginal call, but again the correct one, as Bournemouth return the free kick towards the edge of the City box. Laporte takes no chances, smashes it high into the stands. Throw into Bournemouth, who are enjoying their best period of the game. I mean, obviously it hasn't led to a raft of chances, but they are asking questions at the very least, as Francis looks for options. Long throw down the line. Wilson finds Fraser, pulls it back towards King, running onto it. Shot perhaps slightly miscued, but it's half blocked on the edge of the 6-yard box. King himself has actually picked up the loose ball, finds Daniels on the overlap. Ball in is behind 2 Bournemouth players, cleared away by Zinchenko, only to Tyrone Mings. Now Sermon feeds it out to King, hugging the left touchline on his run forward, and it's a ball in towards the near post. Not quite as good as the previous effort from a similar angle. Leroy Sané is charging forward on the breakout, trying to catch ball without a position, trying to slide rule ball towards Jesus, but Mings back there manages to slide and divert it back to his keeper, as Bournemouth just exposed momentarily.
Yeah, what a good couple of minutes at both ends of the field for the neutral. Good action to get stuck into. Bournemouth with a shot that was destined for the back of the net, but for the block from the defender. Really well worked move, little cut back to the edge of the box, and City then spotting the space to break on the counter, something they don't often get really. But Sane seemed that he had room to run into, and he's only inches away from finding that pass through.
Inside the last 3 minutes of the first half, then City still leading by a goal to 0. As Silva can't find Jesus, making a run behind, cleared away. And in fact, Otamendi makes sure Bournemouth don't get particularly far. He intercepts, into touch, throw to Bournemouth, halfway inside their own half. King looking at a replay actually, the ball in from Fraser. It just bounced up probably a little bit too high to get the sweetest of strikes. It was still goal bound. I'm not saying Ederson was definitely going to save it, but certainly Otamendi was taking no chances, as the free kick to Bournemouth just about on the halfway line. Real good spell for Bournemouth really, kind of weathered the storm. Looked as though City might have a field day in the opening 15-20 minutes, but it really settled down, and Bournemouth offering a threat now the other way. The free kick's on the halfway line, and City's rear guard is a good 50 yards outside their own box, as Daniels goes for the diagonal towards the right. Francis, not the first time, for the first time, as wins his header. Plays it back towards Charlie Daniels, then out to Fraser on the left. A nice little reverse ball for Daniels. A couple of City players out of the equation, as King under pressure centrally though, holds off markers, finds Cook. Out to the right as the cross comes in. A free header! Oh, and there is the equaliser for Callum Wilson. What a ball in. And it's a good header. Ederson might have just got fingertip to it. Couldn't keep it out. Back on terms.
Well, there's been a feeling that Bournemouth might get back into this game, and that has proven to be true. They're level just before half-time. Guardiola sits on the bench, and I'd like to say he can't quite believe it, but having watched what has unfolded in front of his eyes over the last 5 minutes, he probably knew it was coming. It's Wilson who heads home, recently called up for England, and he pops up here with a header after a well-worked move that was sent out towards the right-hand side. The ball is just hung up towards the penalty spot, and he rises in between two Manchester City defenders to head home. It was the captain, Francis, who puts the ball in, and a comfortable finish beyond Edison to get Bournemouth on level terms.
One or two teams will be celebrating that goal going in and hope for more in the second half. City, of course, playing ahead of their rivals, the closest rivals. There's 5 teams below them all playing tomorrow. And it was a chance to extend their advantage. Of course, a point will still do that. And there is still a half of football to go. And I think Pep Guardiola, who has been quite demonstrative on the sidelines, he might have a word to say. They're definitely not at full pelt, Manchester City. The tempo of the game, as much as anything. Actually, I mentioned once or twice. They were a walking pace, and they've been made to pay, really. There's only a minute of added time to be played at the end of the first half, which we are in. As Zinchenko arrows it out towards Leroy Sané, but he's overcooked that one. That'll skid away behind for a goal kick. As Mikel Arteta has got 1 or 2 suggestions for Pep Guardiola.
It is those wide areas, though, isn't it? You mentioned it earlier on, the formation that Eddie Howe has got today. Sané and Sterling don't exactly track back, so when Bournemouth have the wide players in King and Fraser up there, and then you see Daniels and Francis getting into the attack as well, they're doubling up on the City fullbacks who are being overawed in those situations, and that's why there was space there for Francis to get a simple ball in. Still, the delivery should be dealt with. Wilson was on his own.
Yeah, that is the half-time whistle, incidentally. A long clearance from City, put into touch by Bournemouth, but the referee has called time, and at the break at the Etihad Stadium, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1.
At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sané was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sané was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sané was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sané was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sané was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising for the header, getting Bournemouth onto level terms, 1-1. At half-time, it's Manchester City 1, Bournemouth 1, and no less than the Cherries deserve. It was City who went ahead on 16 minutes when a long ball forward intended for Sane was parried away by Begovic. It fell to Bernardo Silva. He slammed home into the back of a pretty much open net. City continued to have all the possession, but Bournemouth in the final 5 minutes of the half created some really good chances, and that ended with them actually scoring on the 44th minute. Francis crossing from the right, Wilson rising.